for having a chat with us, Jean.
You're very welcome.
I just wanted to, it'd be lovely. We're all finished now. We're sitting here in your new kitchen. It'd be nice to just go through some of the points about the build and actually just sort of see your take on the whole process. Really, I think one of the biggest things, just setting the scene in terms of this particular property and working here. Is a history of the house. Obviously, we're Grade 2 star listed here.
Yes.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but the original oak frame's 600 odd years old.
It's about 500.
Right.
The actual date varies depending on which people from English heritage come to look at it, but it's around 1500,
Sure.
maybe just before.
Now, obviously here, devastating that, the house caught fire. But the fire was mainly restricted to the roof. I know that the water damage that was done throughout the house from putting the fire out was really what caused us to have to go right the way through the house in terms of putting it all back together. We came into this project via Mike Jarman at Pentar Architects, as quite often we do, and they were introduced to the project via Roy Projects, project managers, and we've all worked together as a team to pull this together. But just interesting to sort of hear your thoughts on all that and how that team was sort of built and whether you were comfortable with all that, whether you had enough sort of choice or whether the insurance company were dictating this. What was your approach to that?
I was, as you know, unfortunately living in Hong Kong at the time of the fire,
sure.
so it was very, very important to me to have a team that I could trust.
Yes.
And obviously you were introduced to us via the architects, and Roy Projects were also working on my behalf.
Yeah.
And it just meant that I could rely on the communication between those three, because you'd all worked together.
Yes, and we worked together on many projects before. And
I had seen the work that Step 3 had done on previous projects, and I knew that you were specialist in listed buildings. And so that was how you came into it. I mean, having had you on the project, there were many, many other benefits of Step 3 that I didn't know I was going to enjoy.
Could you give us a few examples of some of those things?
Well, I think the team is just a fantastically cohesive team, and that they really are engaged and care. It was never a question of them just doing a job and finishing it. They're absolute perfectionists. They are very, very considerate for the people around, the neighbours, which, as you know, was a big issue here.
Yes, it was another complicated
because we're
challenge.
in a very constricted space doing this construction project. They're very professional and really caring. And actually, I really miss them.
When you're doing a project as complex as this one, there's so many factors into actually choosing a builder to do it. And it's not, loads of people through that process will go out to tender and go to different builders, which, is a fine process. But from our point of view, it's much more about choosing the right contractor to do the job. This is not a job that every builder could jump in and do.
No. And I mean, I think the thing about this, obviously the extension is new completely. But the old part of the house pretty much had to be deconstructed and put back together again.
Yeah, and with no original drawings of how the house was laid out. Obviously, 500-year-old oak frame that over the years has been chopped about, changed and moved, and bits added on, bits taken away.
Yes.
With no original drawings. So I think that there was just a process as all that stuff was being stripped out, and as we removed that, the structure was to just try and record with photographs and anything that we could.
It is quite interesting that we have managed to retain the character of the old house whilst really, really improving things like the light. The light and the lighting is so completely different. So it feels lighter, cleaner area.
It does, yeah.
But it still retains that sort of oldie worldy feeling that you have with beams and low ceilings.
Completely.
So I never thought that was possible.
No. Well, I'm thrilled, and I think that talking to Mike Jarman, the architect here, I think he's done a fantastic job here of really seeing the potential of what could be achieved.
He absolutely has, and you know, the impact of just moving certain ceiling levels
Sure.
has
difference
just
it's
been
made.
so dramatic.
Yeah.
And our top floor in particular, which was 3 rooms, but the middle room had virtually no headroom.
Yeah.
Just moving that ceiling down,
Yeah.
we've now got a really usable suite of rooms up there.
That's fantastic. And how about that little bathroom they managed to sneak in?
I mean, that was one of the big. There were a number of flaws in the old house that we wanted to address whilst
One of which,
rebuilding it.
no bathroom on the top floor.
Exactly. So he managed to get in a shower room, and really quite a substantial shower room. It's not
lovely,
even tiny.
No.
So that was a real achievement.
While you were out in Hong Kong, and obviously you knew that all this was going on and there was a great line of communication there, did you ever have moments where you sort of had a bit of a panic about any of that, or felt out of control or out of touch?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I mean, I suppose the most depressing periods I had was when, I suppose, a few months into the build where we'd completely deconstructed everything. And it was impossible to think of it being like it is now. Because literally it looked like an archaeological dig at one stage. It was just a couple of chimneys standing. So it was, that was the worst bit.
Yeah.
But then once the build started and we could actually see
progress.
I could actually comprehend what the drawings and the design were going to be in reality.
Well, that's the difference, and I think that's always a complicated part of any building project. Is you look at a set of drawings, you know, on a piece of paper or even a 3D on a computer, and you're trying to visualize. You know, it's different for me. We do this day in, day out. We know what that's going to look like because we've done it elsewhere. But for people doing it, you know, until those rooms start getting built, until you can see exactly where that wall is and where you're, you know, it's a feel thing. And I think that there must have been moments where that was quite daunting.
Yes, it was. And I think it was about a year ago, and I came back in February. And then I could see the rooms
progress.
And exactly how it was going to look, and it was so exciting. The one thing that I suppose I always had questions about until it was put in place was the replacement staircase up into the top floor.
And it's still, you know, it's a small staircase and it is a little bit awkward, but when you consider...
Oh, it's much better.
When you consider the space that's brought into your ensuite bathroom, I mean, it was a no-brainer. I think that you know, was totally worth it.
Yes, oh, absolutely.
And it's a sweet little staircase. I think it looks great.
Yes, it is much easier to walk up and down there than the old one.
Just one question from me, really. You know, is there a particular part of the house that's your favourite bit, or a part of the process that you enjoyed the most?
That's a really difficult question because I enjoy. I mean, I really love all of it.
Yeah.
The old part that hasn't really changed much, except for the usage, and the new part. But I think the most transforming part is the top floor.
It
actually.
Really is. Yeah.
Just because we were forced to keep those beams from the original pitch of the house.
Yes,
which we all thought was crazy because they weren't doing anything, and you know they weren't. Yeah, they weren't the ones that were there in the first place. But we've made that into an incredible feature, and that room is now really super.
But what about that master bedroom? I mean, that's a hell of a master bedroom, isn't it?
It's absolutely superb.
Yes. I think that out of all the places we've built, I think that is my favourite master bedroom we've ever done.
And also, one of the things that we've also achieved is views of the garden.
Oh, superb.
That we've never had. View of the garden from the kitchen is
You've got your garden view from the kitchen
Exactly.
sink.
I've always wanted that.
Jean, thank you so much for talking to us. It's been an absolute pleasure doing this building project with you, and I hope that we've left you happy.
We certainly have, Charlie.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.